it's Alice, and today I'm going to talk about the books I read in March. So I've got 5 books to talk about, and the first 3 I did read for a reading vlog, and if you've seen that vlog and you feel like you've heard enough about them, I will do like video chapters for this video, so you can just like skip ahead to the other reviews if you want to skip them. Anyways, first up we have got In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. And this is a mystery thriller, and it's about this college reunion that turns quite dark, and it's about this group of friends whose college experience was very much colored by the fact that one of their group was murdered, and they never really found out who did it, and then they come together for this reunion and things get kind of weird because someone has decided to finally try to find out who did it, and someone is convinced that it's one of the people in the group who murdered this person. So I got this book mostly because I saw it on so many people's like favorite books of 2021 lists, and it was really hyped and I was really excited about it, and I did enjoy it, but I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit disappointed. There are a lot of things that I did like about this book though, so let's talk about that first. I really liked the academic setting of this, and I really liked reading about the characters and getting to know them. I think that there are a lot of characters in this book, so obviously not all of them are like super well developed, but I feel like it worked well, and I really liked getting to know the group and all of the dynamics between the different people. I also think the pacing of this is on point. Like, it's almost perfect. It's really well done, and it's written in a way that feels really compulsive and you just want to keep going, and there are loads of twists along the way as you read this that really like keep you hooked. I think my slight disappointment comes from, first of all, I thought that the ending would be different, and I found the ending quite underwhelming. I don't know what I had expected, but whatever it was that we got just felt just a lot less shocking than I thought it would, and I felt like there were so many great like twists and reveals throughout the story that I thought the end would be like this big explosive thing, and it would be like it would do something different, and then it just kind of didn't. I just got to the end and I was like, oh, okay, and then that was kind of it. I also think that I had expected more from the writing, and I probably prefer writing with more descriptions in it, and I just think that I had expected this book to be very different and like really stand out from other mystery thrillers, and to me it doesn't. Like, it's not different enough to sort of merit all of this hype. It is a solid mystery thriller though, and I did zoom through it like nothing else, so that's definitely a good sign. And I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I think maybe it would have been closer to a 4 stars if I didn't have such high expectations, but then I also feel like maybe it still wouldn't have gotten 4 stars. I think we're good at 3 out of 5 stars. Secondly, I read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and this is a mystery/fantasy novel, and in it we meet a woman named Alex who has been given a place at Yale despite her having like dropped out of school and lived a really rough life. But basically what happened was that she was a part of this like really horrific tragedy, and she is the only person who survived that, and in the hospital someone comes to her and offers her a place at Yale, and all she needs to do to keep her place is sort of monitor the school's secret societies. Now there's also this guy who is like training her to fill this role, who is in his 4th year, and he has done that like monitoring role for 3 years or something like that, and he's like training her to become the new him, but then he also goes missing. So there's a lot going on in here, and we're just trying to figure out like what's happening. So this is a book that I've had for a while, and I got it mostly because several people recommended it to me, and so I had like semi-high expectations of it because of that, but then I'd also seen a lot of mixed reviews, and so I didn't really know what to expect, and I was a little bit nervous going in, but I really did not need to worry at all because I loved every minute of this. I just felt so sucked into this book, and it's really been a good while since I've felt that way about a book, and like I just couldn't get enough of it. I love the academic setting of this, like the setting of Yale is fantastic. I love all of the fantasy elements and how it sort of blends perfectly into our world, and I just loved all of the stuff about the secret societies and just There's a lot going on in this book, and I loved all of it. The main character, when you meet her, is like relatively stereotypical in some ways, but she is very much an outsider in this like sea of rich and powerful people who are all kind of the same. And I think that she offers a really interesting perspective into the story because she's so very different. And I felt like she really grew on me as we went along. She is quite unlikable, but in a very interesting way. I also really enjoyed reading about the other characters in here, and I especially enjoyed reading from the perspective of the guy who is training Alex. Like, he has quite a lot of chapters, and I really enjoyed those. I also just love the fantasy in here. I think I've come to the realization that my favorite kind of fantasy is when it's our world, but there's magic in it, or like fantastical elements in it, which is exactly what this is. Now, there are also two mysteries in here that we're trying to like figure out at once, and slowly but surely things are being revealed to us as we go along, and I just could not get enough of this. This also does one of those things that I love in books, when at the beginning of the story, we learn that something has gone wrong. Like, for instance, this guy has gone missing. We learn that almost right away. And then we sort of jump back and forth to find out how we got to that point. And I just love when books do that. I don't know why, but I just think that kind of structured story is just like my favorite thing. I just feel like this was the perfect storm of a book for me, and it has so many elements to it that I just absolutely love in books, like the academic setting, the magic blending into our world, the mystery, and just the darkness of it all. And it's very like dark academia if you're into that sort of thing. And it's one of the few times where I've read a book and I'm really glad that it's in a series, because I can't wait to read more. Hopefully the second one comes out soon. I think that it's going to be 3 books in total, which is very exciting, and now I'm gonna have to wait for them to be released, but that's fine because I just want more from this world. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars, and it's definitely one of my favorite books that I've read this year. Next, I read They Never Learn by Lane Fargo, and this is also a mystery thriller, and in it we follow this English professor who is also a serial killer, and every year she seeks out the worst man that she can find on campus and she kills him. But this time she's like planning her next kill, and the school is starting to look into all of these like deaths, and some of them are hers, and that makes her really nervous, obviously. We also follow a new student at the school who comes from quite a rough background, and her home situation is not great, and she's having a hard time adjusting to the new school and to the new environment. But then she makes friends with her roommate, and then her roommate is sadly assaulted, and this girl becomes obsessed with making the guy pay. This was for sure a very enjoyable read, but it's not like the best mystery thriller that I've read. The best part of this book for me was definitely how compulsive it feels and how fast it goes by. It keeps switching between the two characters' perspectives, and that really drives the story forwards. And sometimes like a chapter will end with a little bit of a cliffhanger, and that makes you want to keep going. And it's just very like dark and fast-paced and very easy to get into, and it's the kind of book that you can just sit down with and zoom through and just have a lot of fun with. It's not my favorite kind of writing though. Like, there aren't really that many descriptions of time and place, and it has a lot of tension but not a whole lot of atmosphere. And I think that the characters, although they're fun to read about, they're all pretty much one-dimensional, and a lot of them are quite unlikable, which is something that I usually enjoy in books, but I don't feel like there's enough depth there to sort of make them interesting once you start to think about it. There are several twists in here that are really fun, and it was just a very engaging revenge story. It's not the kind of book that's gonna stick with me in any way, I think, but it was like a fun and slightly dark escape for a little bit, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I think it's worth it if you like these types of books. Moving on from the mystery thrillers, second to last, I read a nonfiction book. It was All That Remains by Sue Black. And this is like a memoir slash a science book, and the author of this is a professor of anatomy and forensic anthropology. And she works with human remains, whether they're from like burial sites, or there's been a war or a natural disaster or anything like that. She works with the people who have died, and the book is very much about like the science of her work and also just like dead people and death in general. If you've been here before, you might know that I love a good book about death, because honestly, I don't really know why. Maybe it's just because I'm a little bit morbid, but I love a good book about death, and this was a great one. It was absolutely fascinating, and I loved it. I just think anything about like dead people and death and science is all just very interesting. And I also love reading about forensic anthropology, so this was pretty much perfect for me. It's a great blend of like scientific explanation and exploration, and I think that all of this is presented to us in a really good way, because we sort of explore all of this by looking at some of the cases that the author has worked on throughout her life, and that's sort of how we learn about the work that she does. This is a book about death, yes, but like all books about death, it is also somehow very much about the living and life and just humanity in general. There are personal stories in here alongside the like cases that she's worked on, and I feel like that mix worked really well. And it's also a very well written book. Like, she can really write, this woman, and the way that she presents all of these cases and all of her work and everything that she's seen and been through is just, I think it's done in a really good way. And then there's also a little bit of morbid humor in here, which I very much appreciate, because I just really like that kind of humor. I just think this is an engaging book about a fascinating topic from a very intelligent woman, and you can't really go wrong with that. It's in parts moving and in parts clinical, which I feel like reflects how the author goes about her work and her life really well. She talks quite a lot about that, how she, in some spaces, have to stay detached in order to be able to be good at her job, and I think that the book reflects that really well. It is dark and painful in some parts, yes, and some parts are actually quite gruesome, but I feel like it's sort of presented to us with great care, and you can really tell that the author cares about what she writes and how she presents it and her work and how important it is. And it's just a really, really good book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, but on reflection, it might actually be a 5-star read. Lastly, I read Dearly by Margaret Atwood, and this is a poetry collection, and honestly, it's so difficult to summarize because the poems in here deal with so many different things, and it has so many themes that there are too many to count. This was my first time trying Atwood's poetry. I've only read her novels before, and it was very interesting, and there is no doubt to anyone that this woman has a way with words, and it's one that fits very well with writing poetry. I was a bit surprised though by how sad this collection was. Like, it deals a lot with the passage of time and absences and things coming to an end, and I don't know what I had expected, and there are for sure moments in here of like happiness and joy, but it was a lot more melancholy than I had expected. The writing is really beautiful though, and you can tell that there's no wasted space in this book. Like, there's no filler stuff, and you can tell that all of the words have been chosen with great care and very meticulously, and you can't help but admire that. I will say though, for me, I really appreciated this, but I didn't fall in love with it like I thought I would. And to be honest, I think that I am not at the point in my life where I could fully understand and connect to these poems. Like, I think that reading this at a different point in my life would make much more of an impact on me. So maybe I just read it at the right time, or I just wasn't in the mood. But I feel like in like 10 years time, I think I would appreciate this collection more. It's kind of hard to explain. But I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, and I'm gonna keep it until I feel ready to read it again. And I think I know what kind of mindset I need to be in to fully appreciate this, and so I'm just gonna wait until that time comes. Okay everyone, those were all the books that I had to talk about today, and now it's your turn to tell me about what you've read this month and what you thought, or you could tell me if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them. I would love to hear it. As usual, links to my Patreon and other social media will be in the description if you're interested, and I will see you soon. Bye!